This is Kits and Wagers for Game Week 15 in the Premier League. I'm Adam Zdroik, joined by Chris Owen. We're talking about 6 games this weekend, 6 bets for everyone. Chris, welcome back from Thanksgiving. How have you been? How have you enjoyed these midweek matches? Liverpool 3-3 at Newcastle over the midweek.
Yeah, good. Pretty good game so far. I mean, that the Wednesday slate was really the biggest slate, and the Liverpool Newcastle game was kind of I think I was in a chat with some other buddies, and I was like, it would be tough to see for Liverpool not to drop points in this instance going to Newcastle. Pretty tough matchup, and it was one of the better games of the season with the back and forth 3-3. And then outside of that, Man City got back to their winning ways. Always was going to be Forest has been tough to start the season. They made them look pretty meek. And then Chelsea, they're going to keep their hat in the ring for this title all season long. They look very good. I mean, it was Southampton, and Jack Stevens did get sent off. I think was it Stevens?
Yeah.
With the Cucurella hair pull, which is like, dude, you don't make it, there's making it obvious.
There's cameras everywhere. Even though he's right in front of you, we can see it. All right.
Yeah. You're not fooling anyone, pal. And then Chelsea, just put him to the sword a bit and 5-1 and some other big matches out there too. Everton I'll be talking about them in a second, but that was a big result for them. And, the 2 times annually where Everton fans feel joy. That was good for them. But yeah, it was, the midweek matches, it's hot and heavy. It's 10 games in 30 days or something like that. There's so many games coming up for all the teams. And so we didn't have a pod for the midweek matches just because of the timing, but we're back for the weekend. And, it sounds like you had a nice Thanksgiving as well. We were talking birds last time out.
Yeah, smoking some birds, Thanksgiving rankings, all that good stuff. It did turn out well on this show. So, I came out on the show. I was like, I'm gonna get some corner bets, and I'm gonna get back winning. And it didn't work out. I have not won a bet since I went down to Florida on this show. Because I did have a separate corners and wagers show. I went 3-0 on. My article was 3-1. This show 0-3. So I apologize to the people for listening to this, but you got to follow the other avenues, I guess you could say. But we're going to get back above it. We took a break over the midweek. We're going to get back. I'm still barely up. Chris is still barely down. We're going to be over 500 at the end of the season. I guarantee you, if you keep listening, we will have winning bets for everyone. So Chris, the final Merseyside derby at Goodison Park. This is the biggest match of the season at Goodison Park, maybe. Everton are plus 600 to win. Liverpool minus 215. Look at this. Liverpool, we're minus 240. Now they're down to minus 215. The draw is plus 360. So a little interesting. Everton maybe getting some money here because, I don't know, final Merseyside derby at Goodison Park. Coming off a 4-0 win, but can you believe in Everton? I guess that's a poor question for you. Sorry.
I mean, I don't believe in them necessarily, but as they showed last season, they're capable of beating Liverpool. Last season, I mean, I think that was for Liverpool to kind of go joint first place at the end of the season there, and good for Everton. They won that game. I think it was 2-0, and that was in the same fixture here. So. They've shown, and it's always a bit different in a derby game, but I think what I'm going to focus on here is the goals, and back to your going to the minus 215 on the Liverpool money line with some money going to Everton. I mean, you win 4-0, and I would hope that some of the bettors are like, oh, this team looks like they've improved, looks like they've gotten better. I'm going to, get a little money towards them. So that doesn't really surprise me at all. But I do see, you looking back at it's the historical context of this matchup is it's not usually a goal fest. It's always you got to be weary of the red card. I feel like there's always a good situation where that happens. Many a Merseyside derby. But you look back at the previous results and one of these teams has been shut out in the past 5 games, which is kind of crazy. It's been 2-0, 2-0, 2-0, 0-0, 2-0. I'm taking the under 2.5 here. It is
plus 125.
I actually I looked at a number of ways where I can make this bet. Like Liverpool clean sheet, Liverpool to win in a shutout is actually plus 140. So if you think, but this won't be like a 0-0 draw, and it will be like a Liverpool like 2-0. Check that one out. Liverpool to win by 2 goals plus 115. And then, but I just ultimately, I'm like, I don't see that where this is going to be a huge goal scoring fest. I think it's under 2.5, and that's plus 125. Despite Everton going out there and scoring 4 goals in their last game, I just different competition. It'll be tough. I think it'll be tough on them to go and find the back of the net.
Yeah, I want to point out for Everton, I think all 4 of their goals came from set pieces. They had 2 of their own set piece goals, and then Craig Dawson had a couple own goals. I think all those were off set pieces. Prior to that, Everton 0 goals from their prior 4 matches, I believe it was. So, yeah, just not a high scoring team, but their defense is playing well. I did have a question for Liverpool here. So, do you think this is to date maybe the biggest away match for Slot in his early tenure here? I went through the schedule. There hasn't been a ton. AC Milan early Champions League, the Arsenal match, but it was like kind of no Odegaard, kind of a weird back line in that game. You think maybe this is like maybe the most pressure for an away match that he's had this season?
You could go back to Wednesday and say that too, like going away
At
to
Newcastle. I don't know.
Newcastle's like a tougher. I feel like Newcastle away to Newcastle is a tougher.
Well, just like it's not really a derby though.
I don't know.
I don't want to say toughest, but more like most pressure, like derby.
I could give you the absolute coach speaking here. Coach speak here and be like, yeah, every game,
they're all the
next
same.
game up, next game up, it's going to be the toughest game. Like, but no, I mean, no, away to the San Siro. Away to Newcastle, I think those are tougher away games than Everton at Goodison. There's it's tough, like those are 2 better teams and two places that are traditionally, I think, tougher places to play when they're when the stadiums are buzzing. Last time at Goodison, I think that there's no doubting that the fans will be up for it, but I'm not prepared to say that. Of course, every game is the next toughest matchup for them, but I'm not prepared to say that this is the toughest matchup for the season away from home.
Liverpool have been held scoreless in 2 of the last 8 trips, maybe 2 of the last 7, something.
Yeah,
like that.
Last season, the last 2 games at Goodison, they've been held scoreless. So
yeah.
Take this under if to self-serve here, but I think the under looks kind of tasty here.
Speaking of unders, I have Aston Villa home against Southampton. Look at the odds here. The odds have moved a heavy, maybe a little bit to Aston Villa. Minus 245. Now they're at minus 265. Southampton plus 650. You mentioned the Southampton match against Chelsea. And they didn't have 3 of their regular starters in that game. So Harwood Bellis, Flynn Downs, and Tyler Dibling, arguably maybe 3 of their 3 best players this season, all were out suspended. So I think that went heavily into that loss. But they get those guys back. Stevens is out, but Stevens is on his 2nd red card suspension. It's been a tough season for him in the Premier League. But I'm looking at Aston Villa here. And I took Chelsea under corners on maybe my article last week. I'm taking under corners again here. This time I'm going Aston Villa. Aston Villa under 6.5 corners, plus 110 odds. Kind of a weird bet. Home against Southampton. Why are you betting against Aston Villa corners when they're heavy favorites? But Southampton, as we know, they like to possess the ball out of the back, have turnovers, do stupid things on their back line, that kind of thing, which they did many times against Chelsea. Yeah. They tend to possess the ball more. I wouldn't be surprised. I didn't look at the numbers here if they actually on the season had more possession than Aston Villa did on the season. But I feel like Southampton will possess the ball. They're going to make mistakes. Aston Villa will go on the counter, but they're not going to rack up corners. The only way they're going to rack up corners is if it's like 0-0 and, they're actually pushing heavy in the second half, or they're down a goal and they're racking up corners, that kind of thing. But I don't really think that's going to happen. So at least hopefully it doesn't. But Aston Villa under 6.5 corners plus 110. This might be my first under corners bet on this show. Does it sound familiar to you?
No, the unders is not something you're usually hitting on these corners bets. This is interesting. I feel you're like Southampton possessed it out of the back take, whereas like that might, keep Aston Villa from kind of pushing forward as much, but it is concerning, and this is more, maybe further away from your bet, but it is concerning how frequently they're giving up goals after losing possession in their defensive third. Chelsea made them pay. I can think back to the Liverpool game where they scored a goal. Soboslai scored there, but like it's just like maybe you don't quite have the guys who can get it done out of the back with that kind of playing style. I appreciate their commitment to it, but it's just like clearly kind of hurting their ability to win games here, or at least their ability to keep the other team out of the net. So they'll continue to do it. Obviously, I think he'll die. Their manager is going to die on that hill before he is sacked. Yeah, they got to. It seems like it's really played against them for a few matchups now.
Yeah, I was just reading something. It might have been from Opta, someone who is like giving some stats on Southampton. It's like Russell Martin might be trying to get sacked, and he hasn't been sacked yet. Just with all the stuff he's saying, he's blaming everyone else and continuing with this strategy, which clearly isn't working. But I also want to add on Aston Villa. They have a lot of matches, and their depth is still kind of being tested. I just don't think they're going to be running a ton. They got RB Leipzig. I don't know if that's away or home on Tuesday. Probably away, actually, because they were home against Juventus. So they have all these matches, and Unai Emery doesn't rotate as it is that much. So I think I don't know. Well, it's kind of dumb to say, I don't think they're going to run that much because they're tired. But I don't. But yeah. But we'll take it on under 6.5 corners for Aston Villa plus 110.
I like it, and the Russell Martin, like you're getting sacked in the morning playbook is out in full force. We've seen it from many managers who's ever been sacked in the past. That you start with you lose a game and you're like the effort wasn't there, and then it kind of moves to like we were unprepared, or like, and then it's like I haven't been backed by the owners, like we haven't done enough business in the and then it's like a blame game of everyone else before you're eventually just out the door in the next week. So this it feels like we're close to the end with Mr. Russell Martin.
Yeah. Speaking of getting sacked, Chris will be talking about El Saquito, Sakiko, which is on Monday Night Football, but we got a different match we're talking about. Chris doesn't know what I'm talking about. Leicester City coming off a win in Van Nistelrooy's debut. Shouts to Rude. They are plus 350 at home to win. Brighton are minus 130. This was minus 155 a day ago. Now Brighton are minus 130. They lost 1-0 or 2-1 at Fulham on Thursday. And so people are like, hey, we saw Brighton lose at Fulham, so why can't they lose at Leicester? I don't know. I don't think it's the same, but do you think it is a short week? Do you think Ruud Van Nistelrooy gets the new manager bump in the second match, or do you think this is regular Leicester here after allowing, I think, 29 shots against West Ham? What do you think shows up here?
Oh man, I feel like this is going to be a fun one. Like we got the Van Nistelrooy bump, which is good for them. That's a huge result, especially after the way things have been going with the 3 straight losses. And nothing like your first game in charge playing one of the other worst teams in the league and then going out there and getting a result. That always helps. Like at least it wasn't like him coming into the building, getting a few days of training with the boys, and then going out and playing like Man City or Arsenal or something like that, and having being put to the sword. That's always tough for morale. But yeah, good for Leicester and Van Nistelrooy. But yeah, Brighton kind of a surprising 3-1 loss there to Fulham. I mean Fulham, have been they play everyone pretty tough. They make a tough game of it for most teams. They were at home, but like just looking at these two teams, I think the only way Leicester are going to be able to stay up is like if they can kind of be better defensively. They've given up a ton of goals. They've looking at how they've goals against here at home, like they've been okay, like top. I think they're in the bottom third, 10 goals against here. Meanwhile, in terms of goals scored, Brighton are tied with 4 or 5 other teams with 11 goals away from home. So they haven't had an issue scoring the ball away from home here. So I actually think this is kind of another spicy game. Like we just saw that both teams involved in 3-1 games. I think this will continue to be a tough. It'll be a tough time for Leicester to play a bit more defensive and keep teams out. I think I'm hitting the over 3.5 here, and I had it at plus 135. So a little weary just that it could be like a 2-1 game, but I think ultimately, Brighton's good enough from attacking perspective. They do have some faults at the back, and then obviously Leicester's given up, quite a few goals here at home too. So I think the over 3.5. It's a little, I wish this was. As always, I think we always wish we could bet an over 2.5 because it just is much easier to achieve. But I think we see like a 2-2 or a 3-1 game here.
Yeah, well, we got a bounce back spot for Brighton. We got first off against a team that may be the least talented team in the league. I mean, you could argue that with
Southampton,
with Southampton and Ipswich probably, but they also won't have Buonanotte, who against his parent club, and he's arguably been their best, most creative player this season. So you take that away, a problem. But yeah, I think this is a spot where Brighton will probably get some good chances. They'll have to convert them for this over 3.5. But I also think playing at home, I think that Leicester have some life under Van Nistelrooy, and that should maybe lead to some Jamie Vardy, Patson Daka finally getting on the pitch as well and scoring. So maybe those guys, maybe some extra life in them after Steve Cooper was sacked.
Yeah, it should be an entertaining game though, at least from like a play perspective. It's not like two very defensive. It's not going to be like the third game that I'm talking about.
Leicester is fairly defensive, but maybe not as much under Van Nistelrooy.
Yeah.
Speaking of new managers, Manchester United are home against Nottingham Forest. They are minus 155 to win. Nottingham Forest plus 425. The draw is plus 310. Manchester United pretty healthy here. They're getting Lisandro Martinez and Kobe Mino back from suspension, which is nice. Amorim has rotated his side heavily across, I think, his first 4 or 5 games, however many he's been, through midweek and weekend matches. So those guys will be back in the 11. We could see Xerxes, Rashford back in the 11, Diallo back in the 11. All those guys, basically, they're benched at Arsenal. But otherwise, Nottingham Forest coming off that result against Man City, Manchester United coming off the result against Arsenal. The one thing I've noticed in these early Manchester United matches under Amorim, maybe it's, this is a small sample size and maybe it means nothing. Probably means nothing in the end, but I'm going to bet on it anyway because I said I was going to bet on it the last couple matches and I ended up not betting on it. But Manchester United have had, again, I'm just doing this off of memory here, unfortunately for the people, but I think they only have like 5 or 6 corners across the first 4 games for Amorim. They had 0 corners at Arsenal. I was going to take them under 3.5 corners at Arsenal, but it was minus money. So I was like, yeah, it's kind of a low number, Arsenal. And then they had 0 corners. So that leads me to this bet here. And I was going to take under 6.5 corners by itself, similar to the Aston Villa bet here. But I'm throwing in a single game parlay because I don't think Manchester United are going to lose this match at home. Last home match, 4-0 against Everton. Nottingham Forest, I think they're getting found out a little bit with the way they're playing. Very good defensively, kind of limiting opportunities for teams, but their offense just isn't very good. Chris Wood, Brian mentioned on the show, he had 8 goals on 5 XG earlier in the season. I don't know what it's at anymore, but don't think Manchester United are going to lose this match at home. And Nottingham Forest is solid at not allowing corners, in this Manchester United team isn't getting corners. So let's put them together. Manchester United double chance and under 6.5 corners for plus 110 odds. What do you think? Another under corners bet? What a show.
Yeah, this is, I mean, You're getting in your bag a little bit here. Two back to back, and they're both 6.5, right? So
fresh off an 0-6 record, I'm going under corners bets.
You're in, mental pretzel for sure. It seems like, are we overthinking it? Are we not overthinking it? Time will tell. I will agree with your comment on, Forest are now kind of regressing a bit from what we saw in the beginning of the season, where they were like, I think they were like top 4 there for a week or two. But tough stretch of games here where they did beat Ipswich 2 games ago, but before that lost 3-0 to Arsenal, again 3-0 to City. They have United, then they have Aston Villa next, and Brentford, Tottenham. Like, these are a stretch of probably 6 games with like some of their toughest opponents. So I would be surprised if we walk away from get into January and Forest are still like in the top. I wouldn't be surprised if they've dropped off to like the bottom half of the league or right around 10 and 11 there. So it's just going to be a tough stretch for them. And yeah, I mean, if United don't come away with at least a draw here, questions are always asked if you don't get all 3 points, but I think it would be surprising to me too. I just think the new manager, he's kind of still instilling his style of play, so I think it's kind of tough for the team. But yeah, you mentioned, like, was it Malacia who came in?
He started a couple games now.
Yeah, like that's been an interesting inclusion. Like, it's always a fresh slate for those players who were kind of maybe unfavored when a new guy comes in. So. If anything, it's good to see those guys get some play, and we'll see how it works out. But yeah, I do see United at home kind of at least taking a point.
Yeah, I was gonna say Forest are playing better than I thought they would before the season, but they're still not like a top 8 side. So from which is what they were. But Monday Night Football up next for Chris. West Ham are at home. This is El Sacico. Yes, they are. This is exactly what they're calling it. You can look up, you can Google El Sacico, and it does pop up. I didn't look into the meaning of it, but basically whoever loses this match is going to get sacked. That's what the general consensus is. West Ham are at home, -115. Lopetegui coming off that loss against Leicester. Wolverhampton +290. Gary O'Neill has had a difficult run as well, also coming off a loss midweek. So El Sacico, look at these odds. Wolverhampton were +250. Now they're +290. There wasn't any injury news that came out. I don't know why those odds jump like that. But before I shoot it to you, I just think that the Wolverhampton players like Gary O'Neill more than the West Ham players like Lopetegui. That's kind of my read on it. But at home at West Ham, does that, or am I just making stuff up? And I'm reading too much of Twitter rumors, I guess you could say.
You can never, can you read too much of Twitter rumors? I'm not sure.
During the election, yes, you can.
Yeah, I guess that's right. Maybe I was like,
that's where you draw the line. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I completely, I don't actually think about anything outside of the EPL. So like, whoever made this name up, take a lap. But I guess whatever.
I'll find out the reason.
I'm on Hammers.news and they're reporting. So very reliable source here. But they're reporting anyone, whether it's a draw or if it's a draw, they're both losing their job. And if it's, one team wins, the other guy's out. Lopetegui still being around is definitely a surprise to me. But yeah, the Monday Night Football, it doesn't get bigger than this with Wolves and West Ham. But kind of just looking at the way that these games have broken down, there's actually, but these teams are interesting in the fact that you look at West Ham and this is a big reason why they're in the place that they're in, but they've given up 15 goals at home in 7 matches. So they're giving up, right around 2 goals a game. And then, Wolves, I think, have also been okay away from home in terms of they're third behind Liverpool and Chelsea. They're tied with a few other teams for goals scored there away from home. But I think this is the last game that we see Lopetegui, and then Gary O'Neill keeps his place. And I think I'm not going to go as far as say he'll stay around for the rest of the season, but I think Wolves can pull this game out. And it just seems like nobody on West Ham actually believes in the manager. and it seemed like it's been like that for maybe more than 3 to 4 games. And so I like Wolves over 1.5 goals. I'm not saying whether they'll win. This could be kind of like a spicy 2-2 draw, or even West Ham gutting it out. But it just doesn't seem like any of the guys for West Ham are ready to play for the manager. And like they're like, okay, like who's coming in next, and how am I gonna try to impress the new manager? Whereas I feel like Gary O'Neill is actually a pretty good manager. And so I feel like they can go and win this, and hopefully he keeps his job and Wolves improve the rest of the season. But really, for Wolves, the issue, they haven't been that good. They've lost 4 away from home in 7 games, but like the issue is at home for them. They've lost 5 games. They've given up 18 goals at home. They've been, I guess, similar at away from home, but like they've gotten a couple more results away from home. So. If he wants to keep his job, he's got to improve at home. So I think they're able to at least take a point here, and I do think that they're going to score 2 goals, plus 155. So definitely the best odds of my 3 bets here for the week.
Yeah, I agree with you on that point. Does seem like every week a couple players like hate Lopetegui. They get in a fight. It's the last thing that's happened to Tottenham. Kudus had an issue earlier in the season. Both these teams, maybe including Southampton, just like the 3 teams that make the most mistakes, that do the worst defensive things. Every game they make defensive mistakes. Wolves, again, the Everton match, 4 goals, all off set pieces, a couple own goals. West Ham, just massive mental defensive mistakes where it seems like they're not trying. I don't know, some of those Leicester goals, that Arsenal match, looking back at recent games, it just seems like some of those guys don't want to be there, whereas Wolves is just like they're not very good and they don't have the players to I don't know. Neither team has great cohesion, so maybe that's going to mean goals. Maybe I'd look at, with Wolves over 1.5 goals, maybe I'll look at over 3.5, something like that as well. Just another option, but it's really hard. I would lean Wolverhampton, but just taking them money line away from home is it seems like a tough bet for me personally, given how they look this season.
Yeah. All right. Question for you. The over 3.5 is where you get plus odds here for this game. On a scale of 1 to 10, how inclined are you to take an over 3.5 goals at plus 145? 1 to 10, and you think it would hit?
I think it's going to be 2-2, so I'll say like a 6.5.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I mean, Wolverhampton have given up 6 more goals than anyone in the league, 36 goals in 14 matches, while West Ham have given up 27 goals in 14 matches. So like both teams given up a boatload of goals. So if you think that transpires into another high scoring affair here, over 3.5 is plus 145.
If it's a draw, who gets sacked? Do they both get sacked?
Hammers.news is reporting that both will be sacked. So
okay,
take that
the rules for Sakako.
El Sakako.
I looked it up. Some Hammers fans are saying this is the 3rd Sakako for Lopetegui, even though he's only been manager for 7 months. So.
Yeah, and like lost at the midweek.
Yeah. Speaking of getting sacked here, a lot of Postecoglou hate going around after their loss on Thursday at Bournemouth. They could not score. Man, Tottenham are home against Chelsea. Where have things gone wrong? Ben Davies off with a hamstring injury. If you're watching on YouTube or Twitter, again, make sure to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like this video, subscribe, get more videos. But the odds here, earlier in the week, Tottenham were plus 140 to win. Now it's plus 205 to win. Chelsea were plus 170 to win. Now they're plus 110. I think that's a crazy jump. This is a game by game basis. I know the injuries for Tottenham, but this is still a home match here. And Chelsea, just because they beat up on Southampton, doesn't mean they could, go to a real team and get a win. I would, the plus 110 odds just seem terrible to me personally. So I was actually looking at, before earlier in the week, I was looking at Tottenham money line, but this question on the back line, it does seem like a pretty big issue here. Romero could train over the weekend, so if he's back in the starting 11, maybe that changes my thoughts a little bit. But Van de Ven's still out. Ben Davies picked up a hamstring injury, so we could get Archie Gray, who started at right back yesterday on Thursday. He could play at center back because they don't really have anyone else who can play center back. I believe Archie Gray was playing center back in the preseason. He has not played there. I don't believe he's played there in Europa League. So that is definitely an issue when you consider Chelsea's attacking returns this season. But and you got Fraser Forster in net. I'm listing all the worries here for Tottenham, but still, I think I'm still on this Tottenham side here. My bet is both teams to score. Tottenham double chance plus 125. I just don't want to bet Chelsea money line first off, and I still believe in Postecoglou a little bit. They're playing at home, coming off a loss. They at times they show up against Man City. They show up in some of these bigger matches. I think that this is a time they show up in this match. And I'm still not sold on Chelsea's back line. So I think there's going to be goals for both sides. And I think Spurs get at least a point here. So what do you think? Plus 125 odds.
Yeah, I love starting this match off with like, is Ange going to get sacked? I don't think this will be the game that does it, but they got to start becoming like showing any form of consistency, which they haven't really done so far. Another tough L, but yeah, Chelsea have been electric here. They are firmly in the title race with Arsenal and Man City and Liverpool. So Enzo's done great for them, and yeah, I guess both teams have scored and Tottenham double chance. I feel like they are classically playing to their competition. We see this when they play Man City, and then they just like drop points to teams they shouldn't drop points to. Chelsea comes to the stadium, and all of a sudden they're playing like pretty strong. But yeah, the injuries really concern me here, especially with like as you mentioned how good Chelsea's attack is. But yeah, both teams to score. That feels like very, very strong, but I'm concerned about Tottenham's ability to defend against Chelsea's front, 3 to 4.
I think I haven't looked at this today, but the odds on both teams to score by itself was like minus 290 or something. And I think for Thursday's match at Bournemouth, I think the over 3.5 might have been favored. Either way, it was probably like minus 200. Both teams to score. That one was 1-0. Well, what's your type of score line on this match? I said 2-2 for that Wolves West Ham game. You think both teams back and forth over 3.5 goals here? Is this a spot?
Yeah, can we get like a 3-2?
3-2 Tottenham
and really go for it on a 3-2 like over 4.5 type of deal? Because the injuries that Tottenham's got is really what makes me think that. And then, we just saw a 6-goal match with, Tottenham and Southampton and Chelsea. But Chelsea can fill it up here, and I think they will. But yeah, you mentioned how Chelsea is plus 110 away from home. It would have been nice to get Chelsea at like a plus 150, on the money line. I think that would have been a much it's like, come on, help us out a little bit here. I would love to take that bet.
Over 3.5 goals is minus 115. So everything points to a lot of goals. I just want to look at some of these away results for Chelsea this season, which is kind of where my Tottenham bet is coming from. So open the season at Wolverhampton. I'm not even going to include some of these UEFA matches because they're against Panathinaikos, Servette. At Bournemouth, at West Ham, a loss at Liverpool, loss at Newcastle, 1-1 at Manchester United, which was basically right around when Ten Hag was sacked, at Leicester City, at Heidenheim in UEFA, at Southampton. Those are all their matches. So they basically lost against the best teams they played, beat up on more or less bottom 5, bottom 10 clubs. Now they're at Tottenham. Tottenham fans will say this is a bottom 5 side, but obviously they're not. So that's why I think I just like Tottenham here. I'm still not sold on Chelsea showing up in big spots such as this one.
Yeah, well, we shall see. This is probably the best matchup of the weekend too. So got to stay locked in.
arguably. Anything else stand out? Man City is at Crystal Palace. That might be it. We talked about a lot of these other ones. Oh yeah, Brighton are home against Newcastle. That's an interesting match. Brentford are home against
Yeah.
Newcastle. I was going to give a bet on that one, but that one is just a little tricky. I think I actually wrote one up in my article. Aston Villa, I did talk about them. Arsenal are at Fulham. So, we talked about all the big ones, maybe outside of Newcastle, Brentford, but anything else stand out here?
No, there was a SofaScore I woke up, got on Instagram. SofaScore had like a top XG differentials of the season, and it was interesting to see Bournemouth, and I think they were in the top 3 or 4 there. So they've been their XG says they've been able to score a lot of goals and play pretty good defense, but and I guess they're kind of mid-table-ish, but something to keep an eye on moving forward, whereas they're creating chances and have been strong. So I do think they're like, if they can't get 3 points against Ipswich, got to ask some questions, but Tractor Boys have been getting kind of them mowing down the crops a little bit.
The TVs.
Yeah. So
I didn't realize so many people got their information off of SofaScore Instagram.
Dude, people are getting information off of a lot of places that you
558,000 followers on Instagram for SofaScore.
Yeah.
Just to look at graphics of like random stats.
I'm not going to get into the ways that people consume media and learn facts, but if there's anything that we know about this little world here is that social media platforms are continuing to rot our brains, including mine.
There's a graphic on Shaqiri, his stats over at FC Basel.
Has he been pretty good?
On this day at the World Cup. Should I follow this account? I don't even know if this would be helpful to me. What information did you grab here? Oh, Brentford home and away. Maybe that's it. Okay.
No, it was like their XG differentials at all the top 5 leagues. It was kind of interesting.
Okay, I see it. XG table.
Yeah, there you go.
Interesting. I didn't realize something like this was so big on Instagram, but
yeah, I mean, like Transfermarkt on Instagram, they do a really nice job too. It's like I'm sure it's pretty easy for them to put together some Getty images on some graphics and then slap together transfer market values of teams, which it's just like, I don't know. It's not a real data point, but it is kind of a fun way to kind
10 of million followers, man.
Yeah, transfer, and like they do some cool regional accounts too. So I follow the US one where they have like USL values, which is insane to me because like I think there was a guy who played for Charleston Battery, Marinkich or something like that.
Marinkich.
Yeah, he went to like Rayo Vallecano or something like that. In basically, anyways, they had his value like 500K. It's like, how do you I don't have the math to estimate that kind of stuff, but it is just kind of cool to see like upcoming Club World Cup. The other day they had I think the Sounders are in it. They play Atletico Madrid, Paris Saint-Germain, and a Brazilian side in their group, and it was like their team is worth like 49 million pounds. PSG is worth like 700 million pounds or something like that. Atletico is worth like 600 million pounds.
What a competition!
Yeah. So, although all 3 games, they're 3 group games.
Man City 1.26 billion. Wydad 18 million.
Yeah, it's insane. Like so I don't know. It's fun to kind of, it's just like, I'm not like using it as a real data point.
I think I'm missing out. I only use Instagram for like pasty photos, food pictures, maybe a picture of like the Lake Michigan coastline in the winter after a blizzard, that kind of thing. That's what I'm all about. I don't follow the soccer stats on Instagram. I save that for other avenues.
Yeah, you're actually going to the real data points. I'm just like screwing around, hitting like the TikTok reels. And
that's my break from work. Soccer all day. I need a break from the actual sport. And I pull up Instagram to look at, get me hungry with food and
barbecue.
Enjoy some landscapes. Yeah, get some barbecue.
Yeah, the amount of barbecue accounts I follow, I gotta chill out on these meat accounts for sure. But
how to barbecue right.
But yeah, I mean, you sprinkle it like 4-3-3, 4-4-3, all the good, the classic
4-4-2.
Well, I'm just saying there's some other accounts out there that are not 4-4-2.
Okay.
You know,
I don't know. I'm not in that world. I'm lost. All right, that's all we got for game week 15. Those are the best bets. 6-0 this week. Chris, happy December 6th. We'll see what the schedule looks like going forward. I think we have a couple regular weeks. We got Champions League next week, a couple regular weekends, and then we hit Christmas, we hit the holidays, and who knows when the games are. We'll probably take a week break in there somewhere. I have not looked that far ahead in the schedule, but game week 15, those are the best bets. Thank you, Chris. You can find him at CHROwen8. I am at Zdroik, also at RotoWire Soccer. Thank you for listening. Make sure to give a like. We'll see everyone next week.
Thanks, Adam.